Hi, Five, and welcome to our next RE lesson. We're going to be thinking today, going to carry on thinking more about Islam and the Prophet Muhammad. But before we do, just a reminder before we start on knowing more and remembering more, that if you need to pause the video anytime, that's absolutely fine, especially if that's going to help you learn some of the information in today's lesson. Please feel free to rewind and fast forward the video once you've watched it at least once, because then that will help you get the information. Also, when I'm asking you questions or asking you to repeat things, doing my turn, your turn, please do say them out loud, because that will also help you to remember information as we go along. So let's get started by thinking about our knowing more and remembering more. First one, in Islam, Muslims do not have to act on their beliefs, true or false. Question 2, how many core practices are there within Islam? Collectively, these are known as the pillars. So what's the missing word? Question 3, which of these is not a key Muslim practice? Prayer 5 times a day, fasting in the month of Ramadan, prayer 3 times a day. So which of those is not? And question 4, how do the beliefs of Muslims affect their lives? So pause the video here if you need to have some more time to write down your answers. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to the answers. If you have a different color pen, that would be great, because then you can tick and fix just like we would do in school. So here are the answers. So true, in Islam, Muslims do have to act on their beliefs. So that was false. Question 2, how many core practices are there within Islam? There are 5, and they are known as the 5 pillars. So well done if you got that one correct. Question 3, which of these is not a key Muslim practice? Prayer 3 times a day. And question 4, how do the beliefs of Muslims affect their lives? Their beliefs shape how they live daily, annually, and over a lifetime. So it has an impact on all areas of their lives. Well done if you got all 4 correct. If you didn't, maybe pause the video now so you can fix your answers. Okay, so today we're going to be thinking about the key belief of Muslims and how this affects their lives. And to be successful, you'll be able to describe what the key belief of Muslim is. You can explain how this key belief affects their lives. You can explain beliefs Muslims have about the Prophet Muhammad. And your challenge is to think of reasons why Muslims find it important to hear the Shahada regularly. So let's think about our knowledge organizer. At the top in the blue, we have got Shahada highlighted with the red box around it. And it says this pillar of Islam is the acceptance of the Prophet Muhammad. So the Shahada is one of the 5 pillars of Islam. And we're thinking now about our second question. What is the key belief of Muslims and how does it affect their lives? Okay, so if we think about our vocabulary, we'll do my turn, your turn. So these are the words we know. So my turn, your turn. Prayer, fasting, pilgrimage, giving alms. Well done if you managed to join in with me on those 4. And let's think about the key words we're going to learn in today's lesson. My turn, your turn. Shahada. Good, well done. Remember, Shahada is one of the 5 pillars. Okay, let's have a look at what is the Shahada. The Shahada is one of the most important beliefs in Islam and forms the first of the 5 pillars. So not only is it one of them, it's the first and considered to be one of the most important beliefs. The Shahada says, I witness that there is no other God but Allah, and Muhammad is the prophet of Allah. Thinking now, what does this suggest about how Muslims view Muhammad? What do you think? Okay, so if you were suggesting things that he is the most important prophet of Allah, and he is, so important that he's the first one. If he comes up in the first pillar, the Shahada, and it says, I witness there is no other God but Allah, and Muhammad is the prophet of Allah. Interesting, it says the is our determiner there, not a prophet. So he is the only prophet of Allah, according to the Islam religion. So when is the Shahada recited? So it's recited, it is said in the Adhan, which is the call to prayer, by being shouted from the top of mosques around the world. It's said by all Muslims performing their daily salat, and salat is another word for their prayers. And these are the first words said into the ears of a baby born into the family of Muslims. So when a baby is born, it will be the first words that are said to it will be the Shahada. I witness that there is no other God but Allah, and Muhammad is the prophet of Allah. So it must be really important. Not only is it said when a baby is born, and it's the first words it hears, but it's also recited at the top, in the Adhan, in the call to prayer by the mosques around the world, and it is said daily. So it's a really important part of the faith. So time for you to reflect now. What is a belief or value that is so important to you that you would shout it from the top of the tallest building? You would shout it from the rooftops. Something that you would probably say every day. We'd want, if you were to have children, you would want your child to hear first. Okay, because it's reflection time, I'm not going to ask you to share your ideas. I'm not going to share mine with you. This is about you thinking for yourself. What would you have liked your parents to whisper into your ear when you were born? If they could tell you one message or something, what would you like them to whisper? And why would you have chosen those words? And being able to say why and justify your answers is really important to thinking about what the reason is behind it. Okay, so we're going to move on in our learning a little bit more. Thank you for reflecting and thinking about your ideas just then. And I'd like you to do a bit of writing for me now. And you can pause the screen so you can see this if you need longer. The key belief of Muslims is contained in the Shahada. This is a declaration of faith that says, so what is it the Shahada says, that first pillar of Islam? It is said, so the Shahada is said by all Muslims during times of daily what? And it is the first word heard by a Muslim. So can you complete this first sentence and fill in these two gaps at the bottom? Like I said, if you need to pause the video, please do. Okay, so we're going to watch a video now to think about the Prophet. And while you're watching the video, I want you to be thinking about, what does this video suggest as to what Muhammad was like as a person?
Welcome to Religions of the World. Islam, the religion of Muslims. Islam is the second biggest religion in the world. It began almost 1,500 years ago. The Arabic word for God is Allah, and this is what many Muslims call God. This is Amina. She is 11 years old. She lives in Glasgow with her parents and her younger brother Rahib. Amina and her family are Muslims, which means they follow the religion of Islam. Amina's family keep a copy of the Quran, the Muslim holy book, at home, and Amina loves to sit down and read it. Her dad explained that it was the word of Allah that was spoken to the Prophet Muhammad by an angel. These words were written down later by the Prophet's friends. As well as the stories and scriptures in the Quran, there are also other stories in Islam about the Prophet. Amina loves telling stories about the Prophet to her brother Rahib. One of her favorites is the Islamic story of the Prophet and the ants. One day, as the sun went down, all of the ants were returning home after a very busy day collecting food for their nest. They were looking forward to a good night's rest. Suddenly, they saw big clouds of smoke drifting closer and closer to their nest, and the air was getting hotter and hotter. There was a fire! All the ants began to run as fast as their little legs could carry them, so they could get out of the way of the fire and smoke. They heard a voice from above saying, "Look what you have done! You've built your fire too close to the ants' nest. The poor little creatures will get burnt." It was the voice of the Prophet. He was camping near to the ants' nest with some of his followers who had lit the fire. As soon as the Prophet had spoken, the fire was put out. The ants were saved. The Prophet said to his followers, "No matter how small or large the animals are, they are all important to God. Everyone should take care of them." The ants all hurried back to the nest and went to bed. They felt safe because they knew that the Prophet was looking out for them. And that is the story of the Prophet and the ants, said Amina. Rahib giggled and said, "Can you tell me another one, please?" Amina smiled and started to tell another story. The Islamic story of the crying camel. It was a really hot day, so hot that everyone in the town was sheltering in the shade. The Prophet was walking through a garden when it sounded like someone was crying. There was a poor, overworked camel tied up to a tree with no shade. The hot sun was beating down on the camel, and he had nothing to drink. The camel's owner was resting nearby in the shade. The Prophet walked over and said to him, "Your camel is just as much a part of God's world as you or I. It is our duty to treat the camel well, to feed it, and to make sure that it has enough to drink." The owner looked very ashamed and promised to take care of the camel properly from now on. Amina smiled at Rahib and said, "It's really important we care for all of Allah's creatures equally." Rahib nodded and asked, "Can you tell me another story?" "Not tonight," said Amina. "It's time for bed." Rahib hurried to bed, excited to hear what stories Amina would tell him tomorrow.
Okay, so now we've managed to watch the video. What do these stories suggest the Prophet Muhammad was like? So one of the things I think that came out from watching those videos or those stories about the Prophet is that actually he considered all living things to be equal, and didn't matter if you were a tiny ant or a human, that you were considered the same and you had to be kind to every living thing. Okay, so we've watched the video of the Prophet and the ants and the camel. And it says here, the stories of the crying camel and the ants show how much respect and care the Prophet had for the animals which he believed to be the creations of God. So who was this Prophet? So for Muslims, a man called Muhammad was the final prophet of Allah. And Allah, remember, is the name that used for God. He was responsible for starting the faith of Islam, and he's referred to as the messenger of God or the prophet. He was born in Mecca, also known as Mecca, which is now in modern day Saudi Arabia, and he was born in the AD 570. And Muhammad is so highly respected by Muslims that they say peace be upon him, or they abbreviate it to PBUH, peace be upon him, whenever they say or they write his name. So if they say it, they will say peace be upon him, or if they write it, they'll often put in brackets PBUH. So your task for today is to be able to create a fact file about the Prophet of Muhammad. And this is a suggestion about how your page can look. And the key belief of Muslims is contained in the Shahada. We did this bit a bit earlier on. This is a declaration of the faith that says, it's said by all Muslims during daily times of and it is the first words heard by a Muslim. Once you've completed that, then you can create a little fact file. See if you can come up with at least 3 facts on the Prophet Muhammad. Now, if you need to rewatch the video, this is a good time to do it, to refresh your memory, to rewind and find out those facts about the Prophet Muhammad. So thank you, Year 5, for listening, and I hope you found this video useful in your learning about Islam a bit more today and the Prophet Muhammad, and I will see you next week for some more.